So welcome all to the I4MS Talk, Upskilling and Reskilling in the Manufacturing Sector, that will be preceded by a discussion with all the participants that are here today as a working group. So I'm going to let you know how the agenda will be. So we are going to have, first of all, an introduction about what I4MS is and some of the skills activities that we have within I4MS. Then every speaker will have around 15 minutes to present their initiatives. And later on, we will have questions and answers and a moderated debate with the speakers. So what's the aim of the working group, or why are we here today? So the idea is to connect with stakeholders that are interested in this field of digital skills and manufacturing, get to know each other and do networking, which is going to be done during the networking event that we will be having in the second part with a discussion. We want to identify and support best practices around Europe and look for synergies in order to benefit the European manufacturing industry. At the end, we want to draw policy recommendations, and from all these working groups, we are going to do a report and a white paper. So the speakers today are really amazing. We have representing the Innovation Action Kit for SME, Silvia Fareri from R4. Better Factory is represented by Paula Cervera from Mobile World Capital Barcelona and by César Toscano from Insthetec. Empirica will present a study that they recently released, and it is represented by Tobias Husing, who is a great expert in skills and the future of work. And we have also Inese, who is the General Secretary of the Association of Nordic Engineers in Denmark. And they have a really interesting study about circular economy and skills related to the industrial sector. So what is the I4MS initiative? Well, we started I4MS a long time ago. The idea is to boost the competitiveness of manufacturing SMEs and that are adopting digital skills and also digital technologies. That's why we are here today. Well, I4MS has different types of offers. It ranges from business services, so community and matchmaking and brokerage between SMEs and DIHs and also European projects. We have also these working groups. We have another one about best practices, which we also invite you to join. And in regards to trainings, we have a catalog of trainings that I will elaborate a little bit just in 1 second. We focus mainly on 4 technologies, and the different innovation actions fall under these technologies. The innovation actions are European projects that are giving cascade funding to SMEs and technology providers so that they can test these technologies. So smart modeling, simulation, and optimization for digital twins would be represented by DigitBrain and Change2Twin. Robotics and human-robot interaction by Better Factory and Voyage. These 2 projects actually work also with artists. They are really interesting. We will hear a little bit more later on with Paula and Cesar. And laser-based additive manufacturing is represented by Pulsate. And AI, innovative artificial intelligence, is represented by Kit for SME and AI Regio. Then there's another project that works more closely to DIHs, which is DIH World. I wanted to present the training catalog. We will leave in the chat the link. We have more than 200 trainings. So if you are here as a training provider and would like us to showcase your training, which is related to advanced manufacturing technologies, you would be more than welcome to submit it to us, and we will upload and make a promotion. Also, if you want to collaborate in this area, just drop us an email at the end of the conference today. So we are going to start with Silvia. So Silvia, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Marta, for the opportunity. I am Silvia Fareri. I earned a PhD in Human Resource Management 4.0 in March. I am currently the sales manager in R4 and the technical head for Kit for SME for human capabilities profiling. In particular, Kit for SME has the valuable aim to make small and medium enterprise interact in a frictionless way with the new technologies. And we have a specific work package that is all focused on upskilling and reskilling of resources. In this context, we developed the worker profiler that I'm going to present to you in this meeting, which has the aim of assessing the skill gap of the single worker to define ad hoc upskilling and reskilling training plan. Next, please. Okay, let's start from the vision of the project. We are going to perform a skill gap assessment because we want to support continuous learning and reskilling of the workforce. In particular, we focus on digital technologies in manufacturing sector. So our solution is tailored for the manufacturing sector. Next, please. Okay, just a brief overview about what upskilling and reskilling means. They are two concepts that are strictly related, but they are a bit different from each other. When we talk about the upskilling concept, we refer to elevating existing skills to the next proficiency level. While we talk about the reskilling, we mean a job rotation. And so learning new skill so you can perform a different job from the starting one. Next, please. Okay. For what strictly concerns the worker profiler and its objective, the worker profiler is a tool that allows performing a skill gap assessment for the single worker. So it enables the worker to perform a self-assessment of her or his skills. It was developed following two steps. So first of all, we detect the key job profiles that are required by the digital revolution in manufacturing. And after that, we developed the front end of our questionnaire, of our tool, that has the aim to detect the skill gap between the skills that are currently owned by the worker and the ones that he or she needs to acquire in the future in order to be aligned with digital requirements in the manufacturing sector. Next, please. Okay. Step one, detecting the relevant archetypes. Archetype is another way to define a job profile. And to identify the relevant archetypes, we analyze international competence database that are our main source of information, that are ESCO and Osternet. ESCO is the European International Competence Database, while Osternet is the correspondent American one. So first of all, we identify the existing relevant job profile for manufacturing sector that are characterized by digital skills. And after that, we also analyze other sources of information, such as patents, to define totally new archetypes. So job profiles that are not currently retrievable from international competence database, that are all characterized by new tools and soft skills retrieved from similar existing jobs. Next, please. Okay, after that, in the end of the process, we create an archetype database that is made by more than 100 relevant job profiles, all characterized by job description, so the job scope of the profile, all the soft skills and the proficiency level associated to each archetype, the task that he or she needs to perform, and the tool that he or she needs to know and manage. Next, please. Okay. Step two, the questionnaire structure. The self-assessment is made by close-ended questions, and this is the workflow of questions that we propose. So first of all, we ask the worker to select the current job profile, so the one that he or she embodies the most at the moment. After that, we ask him to select the task that he or she usually perform, their proficiency level on soft skill following Osternet importance index. Here is the link if you want to go in deep, understand better which is the classification of Osternet, the importance index. And finally, to select the digital skills, so the tools that he or she actually manage or use, and the program languages that he or she knows. Next, please. Okay. After having performed the self-assessment, we provide, first of all, the 3 most similar job profiles. So the one that have the most number of competencies in common with the starting job profile that the workers select, and also severe analytics that I'm going to show you in the next slides. The second important output is the list of skills that you have in common with the job profile that belong to the International Competence Database, but also the ones that you need to acquire in order to be aligned with the ICD's current profile. And so we perform in some way a contrast analysis between what you are currently able to do and what you need to do to be aligned with the standard. After that, we also provide the list of skills that the worker have in common and the list of skills that the worker need to acquire to be aligned with another profile, one of the 3 most similar profiles that we identify at the end of the worker profiler. Next, please. Okay, that's an example of outputs of the questionnaire. Let me present a use case. For example, I am an electrician operator. So I perform my self-assessment, and the worker profile provides me the 3 most similar job profiles. So I am interested to reskill, and I'm particularly interested to reskill to the semiconductor processor. The questionnaire gives me the possibility to overview the tools that I should learn, in this sense, for example, National Instrument LabVIEW, the tasks that I should focus on to reskill myself, and also the soft skills that I need to improve. And they are all marked with a red cross in this valuation. Next, please. Okay. That's an example of analytics. So we have this radar chart with my distribution of soft skills level, and they are also compared with average values of other users. So it gives me a possibility to make a comparison between my level of soft skill and the average values of other respondents. Next, please. Okay, the worker profiler have a lot of different value for the firms. For sure, we are able to perform an assessment of both soft skills and technical skills to have an overview of what the worker currently is able to do. Most of all, we are able to make a comparison between what a worker is able to do right now and what the standard of competence require for the same position. So we have an objective comparison between what the worker is able to do and what the standard said that he or she needs to perform, needs to be able to do. We identify the skill gaps, so we have an objective contrast analysis, and we can, in this way, identify where we need to perform a learning activity. And finally, last but not least, we have a guideline to redesign the job description. Job description in the firms are usually not updated, not homogenized in terms of competencies. So what we provide is also an important guideline, a standardized guideline of how we need to express the skills. Next, please. Next, please.
It's already in the further steps.
Okay, perfect. So the further steps will be for sure testing the tool with our small medium enterprise pilots. So we need to improve the user experience and see the first results of the application of our worker profiler. Another important point, in my opinion, that is really, really relevant, a key point will be linking the skill gaps that we will extrapolate from the worker profiler with ad hoc training experience. And so find the way, an automatic way to fill the previous identified gaps. And for sure, integrating the worker profiler with the other Kit for SME tools. In this sense, we are working with the SUPSI to develop the matchmaking tool, which will be a tool able to match the skill gap previously identified with the correct, with the specific training experience to fill that gap. Next, please. Okay, I finished. Thank you very much for your attention. That's my contact. If you have a new question after this meeting, and also the website, both for my firm and also, most of all, for Kit for SME project. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Silvia. Also for the audience, if you have questions, you can leave them in the chat, and I will read them also out loud later on before the interactive activity. So now we are going to go with our two next speakers, Paula Cervera from Mobile World Capital and César Toscano from Instratec, who will present their training approach in Better Factory. So Paula, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Marta. Good morning to everyone. I'm Paula Cervera from Mobile World Capital, and I'm presenting our training practices in Better Factory, in which, as Mobile World Capital, we are leading this skill development task. Our objective is to help the SMEs to adopt these cyber-physical and collaborative robotic technologies to maximize the agility in their production. So in order to do that, we have divided our work in 3 parts. The first one is related to preparation of webinars and documentation, then gathering SMS needs through surveys and focus groups, and finally, our partner Gluon's virtual reality lab. You can go. Thank you, Marta. In terms of training themselves, we are working on the preparation of webinars and documentation to be published on the project website. So far, we have prepared 4 webinars, and the first one is regarding RAMP, and the other one are regarding the different modules that are developed in apps. In the project website, you can go to the next slide. We have introduced these webinars. We have divided the website in different sections to make it clear for the visitors to understand what is RAMP, what is, first of all, the project, what is RAMP, apps, and the different modules that are included until now in apps. So you can go to the next one. Our idea is to, as I said, to complete the contents regarding Better Factory, which is the project, apps with these different modules that are included in this schema, RAMP, and also Lean Agile Manufacturing. You can go to the next one. A part of preparing these videos and webinars, we are also uploading the documentation in GitHub in order to the technical partners to visit this documentation as they need. Regarding the gathering of SMS needs, once we have prepared this first package of trainings, we have worked together with the SMEs in order to understand the skills needs and ask them about their feedback on the current training package and to understand their needs in order to prepare future materials. So this was done first through a survey. They complete a survey in type form, and after completing this survey, we asked for more detail in a dynamic focus group session in which we used Mural tool, as we can see in this slide, and we asked them about questions regarding benefits and core promise of the technology, the implementation, information and data awareness, the workers' previous training, and also about workers' virtual reality previous training. Our idea of this session is to gather more details about their skills needs for the adoption of the technologies. And finally, regarding this last part of virtual reality training, our partners Gluon, they are organized into labs based on their expertise and known methodology in order to young students to develop training tools regarding augmented reality and virtual reality solutions after interacting with the SMEs. And this is everything from my side. Now I'm giving the floor to Cesar Toscano, who is talking about his specific case study. Thank you.
Cesar, we can't hear you.
Hello.
Yes,
Hello.
yes, perfect.
Hello. Good morning, all. So my name is Cesar Toscano, and I am a researcher at Tech here in the north of Portugal. So in the Beta Factory project, we have several, we call them the key technology experiments. It's small projects that involve outside companies from the consortium of the Beta Factory project, and we expect these outside companies, technology providers, and manufacturing SMEs specifically to exploit the technology that we are developing in the Beta Factory. So training here and all the things related to skilling, to give the right tools to the right know-how to the people working on these applications. It will be very important. But let me start before looking at our one example from the project, some reflections from my part. No, the previous slide, please. I am still on this. Sorry. So these are some reflections from my part. Regarding the experience I have here, at least in Portugal, and about introducing new technology in a manufacturing SMEs. What are the key success factors? What are the things that we should try to have before going on? First of all, and these are my own reflections, the willingness and motivation of the top administration in the company. They should be involved on anything regarding upskilling and reskilling of operators in the company. Then we have in several cases here in Portugal, we have been conducting maturity assessment analysis on the SME study, an analysis of the situation of the company, where they are, what kind of technology they have been using, what kind of operators they do have, in order to identify possible improvements and possible innovations in the manufacturing domain, and based on that analysis, try to create an action plan. And it's then on the scope of this action plan that we should have not only the involvement of key shop floor operators in the process, have them involved from the beginning, the key leaders in the shop floor, but also have the support of the technology providers. Also, let me say that from what I have been seeing up to now, reskilling or upskilling, I am not differentiating too much these two terms, sorry for that, but I think that there are here two things. One, it's not only about acquiring the know-how on how to use a given technology in the daily operations. So this is one thing. The other thing that I think we haven't been able to do so far is to try to make possible for these operators to gain new insights on the potential of the application of the new technology. That's a very big problem. Next slide. So one of the examples we have in the project is the advanced plant model. So this is a software-based system. It aims to manage near real-time digital representation of the ongoing state of a given manufacturing area. And the main purpose here is to control and monitor the operations that the fleet of robots, fixed and mobile, do in a given physical area. Basically, the model allows the user to have three-dimensional information about the geometry of the major objects that one may have in a logistic or an assembly line. Things like racks, like pallets, like workstations, manufacturing lines, conveyors, and robots. Next, please. So in order to somehow manage the usage of the tool by the users in the application experiments, we have divided the usage of the tool in three levels: a basic one, a medium, and an advanced. The basic level is one that where the user is required to create CAD models of the physical objects that he needs to represent in the model. And what he gets or she gets is a three-dimensional visualization of a given manufacturing area that may be used in several discussions with technology providers in order to improve or to change the layout of this manufacturing area. For the median level, the tool is extended and connected with robotic solutions, and the aim is to monitor the behavior of these robotic solutions in the shop floor by using a three-dimensional visualization of the model. And the advanced level, it's more complex. A connection is established with a manufacturing execution system responsible usually for producing production plans that are imported into this tool, and this tool aims to control and monitor a fleet of robotic solutions so that they do the tasks that were assigned by the production plan. Here, much more knowledge and know-how is required from the user, as it's not only to use the tool by itself, but also to manage the robots that are behind this tool, and to be able to overcome exceptional situations in terms of faults. Next slide, please. So what we have done so far, we have developed a very comprehensive set of training material that we have embedded in the software itself. So besides the website of the Beta Factory, where this is also available, the tool itself, it contains the training material. So we have developed a set of very practical instructions that tell the user what he should do to make this and that step by step. And these were very, we took some time doing this because we want first of all, this to be very simple, very practical, so that any type of user with some support could engage in this training material. And in complement, we supply some examples of CAD models that could be used as they are, and we have developed some videos that show the same instruction steps, but in a video format. And naturally, as usual, we supply a user manual that goes further in order to give some knowledge about the potential of the tool itself, and we complement this with some webinars, as Paula already mentioned. So these webinars, they focus on the tool. They are oriented to the companies that participate in this application experiments, and it's not only about showing how to do this and that, but also, and this is the most important thing from my part, to let them know the potential of this technology, so that they could start thinking on other improvements besides the ones they have thought so far. Thank you very much. This is my last slide.
Thank you, Cesar. So we've seen the profile of the worker, afterwards a real upskilling activity, and these two initiatives fall under I4MS. They both are innovation actions and are actually giving, through open calls, funding for SMEs to test new technologies, and well, these activities fall under the benefits of the SMEs. So some upskilling and activities are also funded under I4MS. And now we are going to travel to the future with Tobias, who will present the skills for industry well, research, and that has they are looking already until 2030 how skills are going to change. So Tobias, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Marta. Well, we see how far into the future we will go, or whether it all turns out as we try to forecast. Anyway, so it's an honor to be here, and congratulations for the first two presentations. Very interesting cases that I would really like to connect with. So what I'm talking about is a study we did for DG Grow. It has this title, Skills for Service Innovations and New Jobs, Scenarios for and Recommendations for 2030. We did this, could you move to the next slide, please? We did this together with ISIP and PwC Luxembourg in 2019 to 21. And yeah, we started off, let me put it like this. Like many projects during the last 2 years, we've been disrupted. Yeah, there's been COVID, and there's been another thing, which is a considerable policy change or new policy direction in Europe, which suddenly gave us unthinkable amounts of money for reskilling. At least they announced this, and that caught us during the first half of our project. And so we had to re-navigate a little bit. So we started off as a service innovation project, talking about what can service innovation and service science do for new jobs and new occupations. But then soon we started or we changed this more to a general direction regarding reskilling and upskilling and what policy can do and what our recommendations would be. So this is what we did here. We finished with a high-level conference, which was quite big, and I give you the link here. So if you're interested, have a look. Sorry for boasting, but we even managed to get David Autor have a nice little message for us on our YouTube channel here. So we are very proud of this. So if you're interested, check it out. Next slide, please, and then I go to the contents. Okay, so a lot of text here. I'm sorry for that. Please don't read it. What we did is we made 3 scenarios, and these scenarios are pretty much the good, the bad, and the ugly. So the first one is, what if everything is just fine? Everything turns out to be super duper. This is our vision then. And then we have on the opposite side, we call this muddling through, where everything is really not going as it should. Yeah, what we did is we had this model of different stakeholders and modeling their needs and their likely behaviors and their incentive project systems, etc. And so we really modeled these scenarios around these stakeholder groups. So if we just look at the vision, of course, everything is rosy and shiny. We see upskilling and reskilling is a default, especially for business processes and smart services. We see fast and adaptive, just-in-time personal training systems like the ones we just heard. I mean, this is a step towards this, I think. We have all stakeholders aligned. Everybody agrees this is an important topic. We have enablers, smoothly operational funding, guidance, micro-credentials, things like this. Innovation in education is demand-based, so we educate and do training according to the needs of the market. We have empowered learners. They make mindful and responsible investments in their education. We have focus on inclusion, gender balance, diversity. So you see all these points, which are more or less something like a checklist to say, okay, what do we have to take care of, or what should policy really address here? Yeah, and so on the next slide, please. So we said, okay, probably everything has to work together. So policy needs to find the way, but we also have to take account of the demand side, so the labor market, and the supply side, the workers, and we also need to see how we can match these two. Yeah, so political leverage is about agenda setting, about strategy alignment. Demand side is about the quality of training. The supply side is about, well, better training. Sorry, demand side is about the scope, the scale, and the matching is then about the friction between the two. So on the next slide, please. Okay, so what we did is we made then, after a long process of stakeholder discussions, etc., we came up with a condensed set of 10 recommendations, and I just want to show them to you here and present one very briefly, just for time reasons. So political leverage, the challenge is to hit the ground running. There are enormous amounts of money available, and they really need to get traction there. Yeah, the danger is, of course, that we just fund the things we already have. We remain with the known and established. Another danger or another challenge is that there is a lack of capacity for bringing these projects on the ground on policy side in all levels, European, national, regional. So you really need the people on the policy side who can do these projects. And of course, they need to include all stakeholders, the unions, the employers, etc. But that shouldn't prevent them from really acting swiftly. Yeah. So one example is that we said, okay, let's develop a policy toolbox where we have a collection of good practice, of best practice, of emerging practice regarding projects, regarding how to engage stakeholders, regarding how to design programs, etc. Yeah, this is just one. Next slide, please. Then for the demand side, we also have 3 recommendations. So the challenge here is that participation in training is really low in Europe. There are some countries where it's higher, but for most countries it's really low, and it's very uneven. It's especially there are some groups that do training, but they are mostly those that are already high skilled. There is a larger participation for women, for instance. SMEs are really hardly participating. Yeah, we need a bottom-up design here because they know what they need. Anyway, so just one example here is we came up with this concept of upskilling roadmaps for everyone. So we said, okay, enable and facilitate the development and use of a framework for change for everyone, so that you really get the coaching and the training for where do you want to be, what are your skills, and where do you want to go, what are your opportunities, and so there's been research that this kind of coaching and training for workers really can make a huge difference in the success of upskilling campaigns. Yeah, and of course a lot of this can be done by artificial intelligence, but probably not all of it. Okay, next slide, please. So on the supply side, we talk about scaling. There are short half-lives of usefulness, so we have a need for speed. Trainings must be increasingly individual, situational, and just in time. The requirements are diversify a lot. They are sector specific. They are often company specific. There must be co-creation, but there is also a need for midwifing. co-creation. So there's a lot of consultancy need for how to co-create. Yeah, and there are a lot of, on the supply side, there are a lot of existing gems. There are really great training programs with lots of benefits that are really still often overlooked because they are regional, because they are in a remote country, and nobody in Germany cares about them, or in Spain or wherever. Yeah. Yeah. One example of our recommendations, looking at the time, is developing in workplace systems for just in time, just enough, just for me learning, like the ones we just heard. Yeah. So this is the step towards this. Really have a situational training approach that cares for the context. Okay, last slide, I guess. Regarding matching, we also had this in the first presentation. The skills language is really important, and ONET and ESCO are examples. So this is the currency of the labor market. We need to get the information between the market actors straight. Yeah. So degrees and job titles are increasingly insufficient. Micro-credentials can help there. There are vast opportunities for smart matching, for better anticipation, for better planning of activity. And so this is really a large untapped market. And I applaud efforts like the one we just heard. I just fear that at some point LinkedIn or Google will simply take over, and because all of this really depends on the amount of data you have, and really the more data you have, the better the models will be. Anyway, so one of our recommendations is here to have sectoral skills ontologies and to feed them into ESCO. And I know this is already happening, so what we are saying here is just keep going and keep making ESCO better. It's come a long way. It still has a lot of problems, I think, but anyway, it's a good approach, and really it should be further developed. Yeah, yeah, this is it. And then on our last slide, okay, these are our 10 recommendations. We tried to map them according to whether they have a long-term impact or whether it takes some time until the impact will be visible, or whether the impact will be there tomorrow if you implement it today. And then whether it's more increase, transform, or innovate, meaning increase, it's something we know already very good, very well, and we just have to put more effort into it. Whereas innovate is more, okay, this is uncharted territory, there is research needed, it's risky, but nevertheless, let's try to do this. Okay, so this is in a nutshell our 2-year project. Thank you so much for having me here and the opportunity to present this. If you want to get in touch, this is my email address, but I'll take any questions happily. Thanks so much.
Yes, so take the chance to write in the chat, and we will have some questions later on. It's interesting because regarding the last recommendation of ESCO in the last working group, Recuadro also presented how Industry 4.0 was reflected within those indicators, and it was also quite interesting to see it today also reflected in your presentation. So now to our next speaker. Inese, the floor is yours. So we will have another view of how this green and digital transition is happening also within the skills. So Inese, yeah, whenever you want. If you want, I can share the screen, or you can do it.
Please go ahead, because you said you will do it, so I just let it in good hands of yours. If you could just share it.
Yeah, you will see it in 1 second. One moment. Yeah, perfect.
So good morning, everyone, and thanks a lot for inviting me to share. If you can just share the next slide, that would be really great. Yes, so just very briefly who we are. So the Association of Nordic Engineers, it is the regional cooperation organization for 5 trade unions representing engineering and STEM professionals in the Nordic region. So altogether, we are a little bit more than 500,000 engineers in the Nordic region. And the areas, the focus areas we concentrate and we work on, it's artificial intelligence and ethics, sustainable development, lifelong learning, and of course, gender equality. Next slide, please. So a little bit of the context. I mean, also today at the presentation, we hear a lot about there is a need for extra skills. But what is the paradox is that it's like we're talking in hypotheticals all the time. There is a need for skills, but nobody really says what precisely skills are needed. Then another paradox which exists today is that when we look at all different political guidelines, whether it is the European Action Plan on Circular Economy, whether it's a Green Deal, the word competences almost doesn't exist there, or there is no link to competences. So there is an assumption that the competences will be taken care of at some stage. And the funny thing is, when we were working on producing our new report that I will be presenting in a short while, we looked at the strategies that exist in the Nordic region. So from 5 countries, 4 countries do have their national strategy on circular economy, but only Finland mentions explicitly competences in this. And this is why it's extremely interesting way to look at how we will deal with the competences if we don't consider them in our political documents. Another thing which is our really direct business is that there is a lot of hopes and actually also expectations put on engineers and STEM professionals because they are the way to find the new innovative solutions. But again, does somebody says to them what kind of competences they should acquire? And then on the slide you can see also 2 other reports that we published in some previous years, because we've been really looking at how do we also make sure that our engineers, despite the fact that they are considered the brightest hats in the professional category that exists, that they also need upskilling, they also need to acquire new competences. And we advocate for actually all professional categories having access to lifelong learning opportunities, namely to actually avoid divide between professional categories, because also in the Nordic regions, what we noticed is that the politicians focus on a low skill workforce. And this is why I completely agree with Tobias. There's a lot of recommendations that already exist today, and also in our 2 other reports there's plenty of recommendations. So what my wish is for politicians today is that really look at this recommendation and move to the implementation phase. So next slide, please. So what was the purpose of this report? Like I said, we cannot constantly talk about we need for new competences. So we needed really to look at, with the assumption is that the engineers and STEM professionals will save the world. So how do we equip them with the skills they need to make it happen? And this is why in the report, for the first time, we present the so-called Circular Economy Competence Framework for STEM Specialists, or the T model, because you can see that it's shaped in a T, like a T letter. And why do we have this competences framework? It's because, again, we go through specific technical and analytical skills that are needed for the circular economy, and also the other cross-cutting skills. And the reasoning behind this framework is that the circular economy principles should really guide how STEM professionals and engineers approach, analyze, and solve problems. And these principles fundamentally differ from the ones driving the so far dominant linear economy. Next slide, please. So a little bit more about these competences without really going into the details. The circular economy initiatives in the European Union have typically centered around recycling strategies, looping materials back into the systems, But for more radical changes to happen in the world's natural resources use, the C competence development should be done systematically across all disciplines, resulting really in a paradigm shift. And at the core of this framework is the awareness and mindset shift, which can be so called as a circular economy understanding, grounded in two following principles: the planetary boundaries and the circular economy principles. And if we look at the technical skills package need for the engineers, we really have to look at the circular product design strategies. And why? Because 80% of the environmental impact of products is already determined in the design phase. But the most crucial thing here is actually circular business models. Because when we looked at the education programs in universities, even though there are a focus in economy, but there is no at all focus on circular economy business model. Because the circular economy, it is economic model, and this is why the circular business models have to be looked upon accordingly. Then there is also need for interdisciplinary skills. We call it soft skills because we know it today that only with the hard, specific technical skills we will not be able to find solutions. And it also means that we need to go away from the pillar education system to more horizontal, and also bringing more societal sciences into the technical programs. But innovation cannot be driven if there is no also specialization on sectoral programs. So this is why, like for instance, life cycle analysis or recycling of materials. So we still have to keep an eye on this as well. The next slide, please. And then, of course, this is not a surprise for anyone that the role of digitalization plays a crucial role in the circular economy. We need IT professionals to be involved already in an early phase of the design process to successfully integrate the technologies into the product and service systems. Digitalization actually also helps with the shift to service business. For example, in the manufacturing industry, needs to be backed up with skills in customer-centric thinking and service design to provide a relevant value proposition to the customers and the users. And of course, even though the digitalization is the enabler for circular economy, the digitalization is also dependent on circular economy solutions on the hardware side. Next slide, please. And then, of course, we also do have recommendations. Can you click on the next one? So, and of course, we divided the recommendations in three parts. The first one is for policymakers. Like I said, today I think the political compass is missing its very important component. I call it the skills and development needle to be able to navigate from linearity to circularity. So we really need to make sure that the competence development is embedded in policy strategies. We also need to conduct more research on what is available and what kind of skills are needed. And I completely agree also with what previously Tobias said. We noticed very clearly that the supply or the provision of specific tailored courses is not known or it's scattered. So we think that there will be really a good benefit from making a mapping of skills courses, of specific courses provision. The next slide, please. Then, of course, for the educational institution, when we were making the report and making interviews, we spoke to 5 universities in the Nordic countries and 6 bachelor programs. But as you see, it's not the whole overview, it's just a little overview of what's going on in the educational system. And like I mentioned before, the biggest gap between the program and the suggested framework was related to the circular business competence area. So we can see that the political ambitions to become circular societies in the Nordic countries do not yet demonstrate in the basic engineering studies. And this is why we also say that the more comprehensive research is needed to really evaluate the education program in universities. Because if we do not invest in education, if we don't educate the educators, we might not have the specialists moving us towards the circular economy. And the last slide, please, with the last recommendation, is of course for the employers. We are the trade unions. It's our DNA to defend our members. So this is why, of course, we also have recommendation for the employers. And what is really crucial here is that we need, or they need, to provide spaces for upskilling. We actually go a step further. We advocate for including competence development possibilities as already a part of negotiating employment contracts. So this should be something that should be like, you know, the new black in a labor market. We also need to make sure that actually changing the world for a better place could be something more appealing for young people to choose STEM professionals. So we really need to invest more on the awareness raising and attractiveness of the STEM professions, because we also see that the lack of young people choosing STEM is another issue. And of course, what we also know that engineers alone will not be able to solve the problem. So the expectation everybody have, you can keep them, because if we don't ensure a multi-stakeholder dialogue, business and university cooperation, I don't think that we can really solve this issue. And the last slide is just the contact information where you can find our report, and also if you want to be connected for more information. So, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for this overview.